Hei, hyvää päivää.
No.
Mitä päivää? Maanantai-päivää.
Lauantaita.
Pitäis olla lauantai. Almanakkani sanoo, että on maanantai. Jälleen kerran aika vääristymä. Näitä täällä tuntuu sattuvan. Viimeinen muistikuvani on se, kun taivaalle lankesi musta valo. Valoa pitkin maahan laskeutui Triptykonin Tom Gabriel. Hän tarttui Timoteusta käteen, minä jalkaan. Yritin vetää ystäväni takaisin, mutta oli jo liian myöhäistä. Seuraavaksi herään tämän merkillisen mustan ajoneuvon takaa. Kädessä oli merkillinen nauha. Mennään katsomaan, mitä se sisältää. Tarvitsen lisää pitkää juomaa.
Well, first of all, welcome to Finland. And
well, thank you. Thanks. As I said earlier, I feel extremely honored to be here. If you're a musician from Switzerland, where only a handful of bands have ever made it outside of Switzerland, it's a dream come true, and it's an honor. Even after all these years, it's not something I take for granted.
Your debut album was quite a success. I think it's safe to say that it is one of the best albums in this year. What kind of emotions and feelings do you have now about the making process of Evaristera Demons?
Well, thanks for saying that. I'm very proud of the album, but I'm proud on a very personal level. This album, when I left Celtic Frost, a lot of people didn't know whether I would be able to continue my career, to pull off a good album alone without Celtic Frost. And I didn't know either. The last time I made an album on my own was To Make a Theory on Celtic Frost album in 1985. And ever since then I've always created albums as part of a full band with everybody contributing. And Triptykon's album is mostly written by me alone, and it was a challenge for me too. It was the most difficult time I've ever experienced as a musician, leaving Celtic Frost and basically starting from scratch. That's why just the mere existence of this album makes me very proud, regardless of whether it's a good album or not. Just that we managed to form a band of friends, which to me is a very different thing than at the end of Celtic Frost, where we were basically a band of enemies. That alone means a lot to me, and then that we were able to create an album that has a lot of depth and a lot of darkness, a lot of heaviness, with a very special cover image that means a lot to us all. We were very proud about that, but that's our personal feelings. And when we released it, we didn't know how people would react, and the reactions have been overwhelming. So I'm still trying to digest all of these emotions of the last 2.5 years. And I'm very humbled and very, very happy, very honored that people accept what I'm doing now, and that people see that I'm trying to continue the spirit of Celtic Frost. So I'm sorry for the long answer. It's very complex because of the history of this whole thing.
Yeah, I understand. This is your first time in Finland with Triptykon, and you are the main band in this year's Jalometalli. Did you have any kind of expectations when you came here?
No, we're scared shitless. No, the thing is, I just explained that recently too. A lot of people showed their support to me by booking Triptykon even before the album was out, before they knew whether I could pull it off, including this festival. And they made us the headliner without hearing the album, without hearing a single song, just on the basis of things I said in interviews. And that kind of confidence and trust in this kind of scene where ego and greed and competition rule, that means a lot to me. And now we're here as a headliner, and of course it's a lot of pressure too. We don't want to disappoint the festival's promoter, we don't want to disappoint the fans and the media. So it's a two-sided thing. We're extremely honored to come here as as an untried band, so to speak, even though I have a history, but it's a new band essentially. And it's also a lot of pressure, and we'll do whatever we can, of course, to play a fantastic show. We're human beings like everybody else. We can fail as well, but we'll do whatever we can. We want to make it up to the people who gave us this chance.
How do you approach making music since it's clear that the lyrics are a very personal thing to you?
Well, there's not a certain recipe to how I create music. Any way you can imagine, I've been creating music. I've always been of the opinion that what counts is the finished song. How you get there is irrelevant. I write music on my guitar, I write music electronically on the computer or on a keyboard. I write music in my head and then later put it on the guitar. Sometimes I write music in words when I have no guitar around or anything like that. I write down notes of how I want a song to be, and then later I try to put it on an instrument. The lyrics, of course, as I got older, I have to start differently. When I was younger, I had to resort to fantasy stories or stories from history because I hadn't lived the life yet to tell my own stories. I had to get a message across, I had to resort to different things. Now I'm 47 years old and I've had a life that at times has been very eventful, very drastic also. And of course, you start to be able to tell your own stories, your own impressions, your own emotions, and it's an automatic process as you get older, so your lyrics become much more personal, and I think that's what happened with me.
In your album cover, there is a painting made by H.R. Geiger. What is your relation to art, and how important is art when we are talking about music?
As far as my music is concerned, it's inseparable. I think it's extremely important for a band to also be visually representing what they represent musically.
Yes.
To me, you cannot separate the two, and I think a lot of bands don't pay enough attention to their visual presentation. And I don't mean to say that it's superficial. I know a lot of people think the image and the artwork is superficial. What counts is the music, and of course the music counts. But the visual side gives you an additional level of expressing yourself. And to me that's a chance. That's not something negative, it's a chance. And if you're a true artist, if you're somebody who creates honestly from your own emotions, of course you embrace that chance and you try to do this as good as possible, just like you do with your music. And I've been fascinated by art for all my life. I had a very dark youth, and one of my escapes was art. I was fascinated by art because it was beauty, and my real life wasn't beauty. So I resorted to looking at books with paintings or listening to music. I found art gave me kind of a sanctuary, an escape. And of course that shaped my entire perception of art for the rest of my life. And I still, to this day, when I look at art, I feel much happier than of course in real life. It's simply a fact.
And the last question, what are your plans for the future, and what kind of musical evolution we can expect from now on?
Musical evolution. I sometimes wonder myself what my place is in this scene. I've become known as an innovator, and that's not because I said that myself, but that's because that's the tag that people put on me. It's a very uncomfortable tag because then people always expect you to come up with something new. And I'm now in a completely different place in my life than I've been in the 1980s. I've done all these albums, and I feel I also have the right to just create music for music's sake now, not to try to be revolutionary or anything like that. I don't want that pressure right now. I think other bands can do that too. There's young bands, and why don't they take that work now? Like I did when I was young. Right now, music to me is much more personal. Right now, music to me should be a source of happiness and expression. And I don't want to be burdened with always having to create something brand new on an album. I want to write albums that are good, that have a deep quality to them. It's a completely different approach than I had in the 1980s. And if people can deal with that, fantastic. If not, that's a shame. But that's where I am right now. I enjoy Triptykon's album because it's very personal. Not because I blew apart some boundaries. This album is so extremely personal. It's a part of my heart. And that's exactly the way it should be to me right now. Who knows where I am if I'm still alive in 10 years, but that's where I am right now. And the next album by Triptykon will be a development, just like this album was a development from Monotheist.
Yeah.
It will recognize right away that it's Triptykon, even though it's new songs, but I will develop what we've done on this album.
Okay.